You're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom with Luca Zanna on United States.fm network. Here we go, guys. Second hour, you're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom with Luca Zanna on K-Talks 1340 AM and on United States.fm network. I don't want to say it, but I think sometimes this is my favorite hour because when I envision the second hour about guns, the show is called Love, Guns and Freedom. In the second hour, normally, I like to talk about very practical things. Normally, in the other radio shows that they talk about guns, and don't get me wrong, I like them. Some of them I'm a listener too. They talk about like fashion, or the latest gun from Shots or whatever, the latest rifle, the latest whatever. Okay, that's fine. I do not care. As I said, I don't care if you carry a Mosin Nagant or if you carry a slingshot. For me, the weapon, it is not a hobby. It is not a sporting matter. Of course, I enjoy it. It is a tool. It's a duty. Second Amendment, for me, it's commitment to duty. When I became a citizen, I took it very seriously. And understanding what it means, especially when you never had it in Europe, they don't have it. I didn't have it. You understand that this is not just something for showing off your latest rifle at the range. No. It's a very big responsibility. And as I said, with freedom comes responsibility. Now, today, my goal in this hour is to share practical information on how to become a rifleman. Some of you maybe had a chance to serve in the military. So to qualify, you have to go through a process and, of course, a learning experience and training. But many civilians don't have that opportunity. And I realized that very well, that you can have 100 rifles if you want in your safe. Like I can have, for example, 100 hammers in my garage. But doesn't mean that because I have a hammer and a couple nails, I am a carpenter. I'm terrible for jobs like that. So the idea that not because you have a rifle, you are automatically a rifleman. So we need to find a way, well, I would like to invite you to find a way to achieve that goal. And why? In my little experience, my journey when I was becoming in America, I found that was one of the most important things I could do. First of all, to preserve heritage, that I believe really that when we study our history, riflemen created this country. Their sacrifice, their marksmanship, their experience, their commitment, because it's a commitment. You don't become a rifleman overnight. Our founding fathers were riflemen. The people who fought for freedom, they didn't fight just with wars. That was, of course, the very important thing. Their brain, in my opinion, was the most important weapon. But then they had to defend their ideas. That's why I think every one of us, I don't care if you're a man, a woman, or between, I don't care where you're from, but the moment that you commit to become an American, you should really look into this, how to become a rifleman. Today, I always bring you guests because I'm just an humble student. That's what I do. I study, I find a place where I can learn. I had a chance and the opportunity and a gift, I like to say, God gave me that gift, to a few years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, if not more, probably more, to find out about Appleseed. I talk about Appleseed Project many times, but I always promise myself to bring an expert, at least one of the instructors. Finally, I was able to find a person that he has the time to dedicate to come. What is Appleseed? I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to have the guest sharing this information. His name is Dr. Rich, and he's from somewhere around in Illinois, and he's one of the Appleseed, probably is the Appleseed coordinator for the Southwest. But before I say mistakes, like normally I do, let me ask him, Dr. Rich, are you there?
I am.
Nice
Ciao,
to meet you.
mi amico.
Thank you, grazie. I know that your family was from Italy, so nice to meet you, and ciao. Ciao anche a te, nice to meet you. Dr. Rich,
Nice to meet you.
introduce yourself, please. Tell us a little bit about who you are, briefly as a person, before we go into Appleseed, and then who you are in the Appleseed family, please.
Okay. So my name is Dr. Rich P, Dr. Rich Pistolese. So Pistolese is not an easy name to say, so Dr. Rich P is fine. I'm from Round Lake, Illinois currently, and I work in Big Pharma. I have worked in Big Pharma all my life. Never really wanted to get into patient care, so I've been in pharmaceutical industries, and we bring good drugs that help people save and sustain lives to the market and to the public. That's part of the job and part of my the service that's within my soul that I answer to. On my weekends, I teach for Project Appleseed. I am a senior instructor, and I'm also the Southwest Regional Coordinator for Project Appleseed, which means all of the states in the Southwest fall under my jurisdiction. And my job is to educate and promote about the origins of our country, the events that transpired on April 19th, 1775, that began America, and also to teach about marksmanship.
Yes, yes. And I tell you, my experience with Appleseed was probably about 7 years ago or so. Maybe 8, I don't know. Anyway, I was in Arizona, exactly, was in Phoenix. I heard about this program. I say, let me go check it out. And I found amazing. First of all, I like the spirit. All the people that they work for Appleseed, they are volunteers and dedicate their time, like people do other charity work, people go to churches or help the homeless, you help to share the tradition, the heritage, and also the marksmanship that I really believe that we should be a national rifleman to preserve our heritage and our freedom. And that's exactly Appleseed what does. I mean, you don't go into politics. I would like to remind, you can remind, please, who is the organization behind Appleseed? And also, is it a 501c, I guess, right?
Yes. So Project Appleseed is a product of the RWVA, the Revolutionary War Veterans Association. Mm-hmm. And we call it the Revolutionary War Veterans Association because all of us that are in this country are products of Revolutionary War veterans. We are here. We have the freedoms we have because hundreds of years ago, people stood up and said no to tyranny and no to abuse, and we took a stand against what was at the time the largest, most well-equipped empire the world had seen, and we won. We won our freedom and our independence. So today, the revolution was never supposed to stop. It was supposed to be an experiment that continued, and we believe it does till today.
Exactly. No, this is so important. That's honestly, one of the things really capture my heart, I was so, sometimes I tell you, I get very emotional when I think that, because the clinic, that normally an Appleseed clinic is 2 days, starts Saturday and finish on Sunday. It wasn't just about shooting. Of course, that's the focus, learn the basic marksmanship. And correct me if I'm wrong, I never really made it to instructor, but I was an instructor in training to become, to qualify for the Army qualification test to be a rifleman. And then we will define exactly who is a rifleman. But also was to understand the sacrifice of the men and women, just not during all days of the years of the Revolutionary War, but also just a few days when all that started in 1775, and focusing on that sacrifice that sometimes, we just take it for granted. We just think it's just another, okay, whatever. That man died, the other guy probably got his house burnt. But when we start to put ourselves, transport for a moment ourselves and put it in their feet, to see what drama they have to face, what fear they have to face, when they almost like they jump in that room, in the dark room, and all the doors close behind. And there is no an exit unless you win that battle, unless you take your country, you take your freedom. And these men and these women put everything they had, not just their money or their possession, their physical possessions, but also their lives and their families into this. So it made me really understand what meant for me to become an American, and then of course motivate me to pursue and achieve the goal to become a rifleman. Now, go ahead, because I talk too much sometimes.
No, you're fine. You're very well informed. So I'll explain a little. 200 years ago, we were a country that was ruled by Great Britain. They were the largest empire in the world. They said the sun would never set on the British Empire, and that was true because as the sun set in one area of the British Empire, dawn arose in another area of the British Empire. They literally ruled the world as we knew it. They got into a little trouble in the French and Indian War and decided that they were in debt and that the colonists had needed to pay for these debts. So they started taxing the colonists, which was understandable. Everybody's got to pay taxes, unfortunately. But what they didn't do is they didn't give them any representation in the British Parliament. So these were English citizens loyal to the Crown of English just in the New World. But they did not have a voice in the way they were being governed. And the colonists wouldn't put up with that. So first, they resisted. And then they rebelled. And then they revolted. So what happened was there were a lot of taxes that were set up, and the people each would resist paying the taxes or complain, and one by one the taxes were repealed until the final tax for tea came along. It was an import tax. And at that point, the colonists had had enough. So a group of them banded together, dressed up like Indians, went into Boston Harbor, and threw all the tea off the boats into the harbor to let the Crown know, we're not going to drink this tea and we're not going to pay these taxes. In response to these rebellions, the British Parliament sent over troops to quash the rebellion. And part of the first thing they wanted to do is to disarm Americans. You can't be much of a rebel when you're not armed and the soldiers are. Mm-hmm. But it was a much bigger thing than that. It wasn't just a matter of rebellion and disarming people. This was about fighting a war of hunger. Back 200 years ago and more, we didn't have grocery stores to go to like we do today. Mm-hmm. We didn't have, you couldn't go in and just buy food. If you wanted to feed your family, you had to get out and hunt meat or buy meat from somebody who did hunt meat. Mm-hmm. You had to get vegetables from farmers and so forth. When they made the decision that they were going to disarm the populace, what they in essence did was began to use hunger as a weapon. Mm-hmm. Any parent who's watching this show right now, you think of what it would be like to have your son or daughter starve. Yeah. Or go hungry, or feel hunger.
Or beg, because at the end of the day, who controls the food as a weapon controls the population, like they try to do now with other ways. But yeah, you have to beg to your masters, please feed me. That's what they wanted to
do. Right. It was a way to gain compliance. We will starve you out and starve your children mm-hmm. if you don't comply. And the colonists were smart enough to say, no, we are not going for this. So on April 19th, 1775, General Gage was the commander-in-chief of all British forces in Boston, and he ordered his troops to go out and seize a store of arms that were being stored in Concord. And to get to Concord, you had to go through Lexington. They had already had one, what they called powder raid, mm-hmm. and where they seized people's ammo, because very early on, they realized that it would be very hard to confiscate people's guns. Although they were doing it, it would be easier to confiscate their ammo. Yeah. Or to limit their supply. So they stopped importing gunpowder and shot and dried up the ammo. So anybody try to buy .22 ammo over the last couple of years?
Like here.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. We can't take away the guns, but we can dry up all the ammo. So that was their what they wanted to do. They wanted to seize all the ammo, all the shot, and all the ball, and in essence disarm the colonists.
Yes, yes, and
So go ahead.
Go ahead. No, this is so important because probably say, okay, but we already know this stuff. Many people say, already, not really, because if you get now the average, teenager or little man or woman, young man and woman who goes to school, I don't even think they tell him the whole story. And I tell you the information that I got through the 2 days clinics at Appleseed about the history, the details. I mean, it's something in experience just because of that. I mean, there are so many beautiful things, beautiful, dramatic, but real, that makes you really appreciate what we need to defend, because what we are losing today, I mean, seriously, people before us gave blood, gave their limbs. And now all we have to do is vote, or at least start to open our mouth, and not just go there and fight like they did to get something that didn't have. We have to defend what it is our birthrights as Americans. That's the point. So they did a hard job for us. We became so lazy, and after I felt so bad. After I did my class with Appleseed, I said, you know what, whatever I'm doing, I'm not doing enough. I need to at least speak up more. I need to be more involved because, we don't have to do all the bloody things they had to go through. All we have to do is stand up as Americans, don't be afraid, and start to exercise our basic rights. That's it. And we would take our country back overnight if just 20% of us we would do that seriously. And we're going to get there. Now, back to the Appleseed as the idea of Rifleman. After all, this is the hour about rifle and guns. Mm-hmm. Who is a rifleman? How would you define a rifleman or riflewoman?
I would define a rifleman or a riflewoman as somebody who could shoot with a rack-grade rifle and rack-grade ammunition to a 4-minute of angle standard. You always see on TV these war movies where guys just put their guns over the wall and shoot blindly. Mm-hmm. And I would say if you're not putting ammo on targets, if you're not actually aiming and hitting a target, you're just turning money into noise. You're just turning ammo that you paid for into noise. It's not enough to shoot a gun, but you have to be proficient with it. It is the skill that birthed this country. The reason that the American colonists, a bunch of farmers and merchants and woodsmen, were able to defeat the best trained, most well-equipped army in the world with superior numbers is because we were better marksmen. We relied on our rifles to go out and hunt and feed our families. And that was the difference in the Revolutionary War that made us victorious over the British. It was our marksmanship. And we didn't forget that lesson. In the Battle of 1812, 90% of British officers, the Battle of New Orleans, 90% of British officers were killed or wounded within the first 24 minutes of the battle. That's who we were as American marksmen. In World War II, after they bombed Pearl Harbor, the Emperor asked the Admiral to see the invasion plans for the United States. And he said, there are no plans to invade the United States. And when the Emperor asked why, the Admiral said, because we would find a rifle behind every blade of grass. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that kept our country safe, that beat back tyranny in the Pacific and in Europe, to free a Europe. So I want to ask your listeners, Luca.
Yes.
How many people today think that the jihadists are afraid of us, are afraid of the American rifleman? I'm going to bet they're not, because it's something we've lost. We used to be a nation of marksmen, and somewhere along the line we've lost that piece of our heritage. And Project Appleseed is dedicated to reminding us of that heritage.
Yes, and then you say something. When you say when you watch the war movies, I would like to specify. Let's specify exactly which movies, because when I watch, for example, I like a lot World War II movies. You see that they still aim. They have their M1 Garand, normally the basic rifle,
Yeah.
or the bolt action, the 1903, whatever it is. They aim, and they every round counts. Instead, when you switch to the new generation of, let's say, Vietnam, and you start to see the type of pray and spray situation, you realize that the concept of rifleman, we start to lose it. So I tell you, I think it's so important because regardless, people that, say, I'm not going to join the army, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to go to war. Doesn't matter. If you have a rifle, I think it's so beautiful to achieve. It's like, let's say, for me, it was like almost a moment of Zen. I'm not into yoga. I don't do that type of stuff. But I try always to find the limits of my body, because my mind is pretty fast. I know that. But my body sometimes needs to catch up. And I try to keep it together. And for me, when I say, wow, the first time I went to Appleseed, they say, now, okay, you got to put 1 square inch group. You put 1 square inch, you mark a little square inch, at 25 yards, and you got to put your group, your 5 rounds, in that square inch with the iron sight. I said, you must be kidding me, right? I mean, and that was, wow, the moment, wow. I said, wow, I really realized that I don't know anything. And when you achieve that goal, because, persistence, we know very well, is one of the most important elements of how to become a rifleman. So with persistence and with good education, you can achieve that. Any one of us can achieve that. If a guy from Italy like me with an accent, I was able to achieve that, I think some guys that probably had some traditions from the Revolutionary War, you can do even better. So when I achieved that goal, I said, wow, that amazing. Now finally I'm worth to be a rifle owner. I don't want to have any more rifle. I didn't want to buy any new rifle until I achieved that goal. So let's talk a little bit now in the practical things. The 4 minutes of angle, in plain English, please specify exactly what means. I gave the basic idea of 25 yards, 1 square inch, and also we translate that at 500 yards. I give you the floor. Please, let's specify a little bit what means exactly 4 minutes of angles and why it's so important for the quarter mile rifleman standard.
Right. So 4 minutes of angle, that's sort of an abstract idea. We certainly know 90-degree angles and 45-degree angles, but a minute of angle, which is a degree divided by 60 minutes in an hour, 60 minutes of angle in a degree. So what does that actually mean to us? How do we quantify that? That's a hard thing. So the easiest way to do it is if we were to set a 1 minute angle and we were to project that out 100 yards, 1 minute of angle would measure about 1 inch. And if that line, that imaginary angle line, kept going at 200, it would measure about 2 inches, 300, 3 inches, and so forth. So the easy way to quantify it is to say 1 minute of angle equals about 1 inch for every 100 yards. So we want to teach you to shoot within 4 minutes of angle. So if you were at 100 yards, you should be able to hit a 4-inch target.
Exactly.
But at Appleseed and a lot of ranges, they don't have 100-yard ranges. What they do have is 25-yard ranges. So what we did is, since 25 yards is 1/4 of 100, 1/4 of the distance, instead of hitting a 4-inch target at 100 yards, we're going to divide that target by 4, because we're only at 1/4 of the distance, and that would be 1. We want to see you hit a 1-inch target at 25 meters.
Yes, also, sorry, what I like the idea, even of course there are many ranges they may have, that 200 or the 100 yards range, the revolutionary concept that I think is amazing, that anybody can train anywhere where they have access to 25 yards. And more important, the verification time. If I had to shoot 100 yards or 200 yards, it would take me much more time. And, go there, check it out, come back, walk, whatever, takes time. Instead, 25 yards, you can verify immediately what you're doing, your progress or your problems. Go ahead.
Yeah, 25 yards is a reasonable distance. And also when we talk about ammo, shooting centerfire rifles is a lot more expensive than shooting a .22 rifle, if you can find it. 22 rifle you could probably get for 10 cents a round. My AR-15 probably costs about 40 cents a round. My 308 probably $1 a round. So we want to make it economical. We know everybody's learning and practicing and working to be better marksmanship. So we want to make it economical. We shoot at 25 yards. A lot of our folks shoot 22. We do get a lot of AK-47s, a lot of AR-15s, M1 Garands, and 308s. We get them on the line as well. But we can make this economical. So if you're a mom or a dad and you want to come out with your kids, we can make it a very economical weekend for you guys to come out, learn gun safety, learn marksmanship, and learn to shoot, and take that skill on to the next level. Because I tell you, I took every skill that I learned at 25 yards, I did it at 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. And I can tell you, it is exactly the same. It is the same skill set. You do all the same things, just at a longer distance.
Yes, exactly. Of course, we have to deal a little bit with the ballistic of the round. That means especially how the round going to drop over to 100 yards. But beside that and the windage, we're doing exactly the same. We have the same sight picture, the same type of scale down target that we would have at 25 yards. Now, let's go a little bit basic, straight to the point. First of all, there are no benches in the real tradition of a rifleman. So when I really cringe, when I see, for example, people shooting at the bench, I like to say, listen, it's not on my business. I don't like to judge people, but I tell you, can I bring you a coffee and a cigar? I mean, that's not the way you're going to train to become a rifleman. So I like the idea, very important, that Appleseed shares the three basic positions that the stance, as we want to call it, the standing, the sitting, and the prone. Then there's also a little bit about the kneeling, but that's relative. And this is just the basic, the foundation, and the importance role of the sling. Please articulate a little bit about why the sling is so important and what is exactly the difference in the three different positions.
Right. So we don't teach bench rest shootings. We feel that traditional American marksmanship, as practiced by the people who laid down their lives for our country, is not done at a shooting bench. It's done standing, seated, and prone. And, that's what we want to teach, because it's got to be real life. If you're not going to practice the way you actually shoot, then you're not doing yourself any favors. If you think about it, you don't have to be a defensive person or in the military service. What if you're just a hunter? Were you ever out on a hunt and you have this chair and a bench to set up on and make your shot? No. You're either standing, sitting, or you could be laying prone. So we teach those positions. And we also teach the use of a USGI sling. It's not one of those fancy leather things with the big padding. It's just a simple nylon or cotton web sling that you can use to add a great deal of stability to your shooting, to really learn to put your bullets on target, to be relaxed in your shooting, not using muscle. That sling will make all the difference for you in your shooting. And it's a lost art. It's not something that people really teach today, but we do here at Project Appleseed.
Yes, and for me, it was one of the most important, one of the first important things really that say, wow, this is great, because the idea that with a sling, we can achieve that 4 minutes of angle with the iron sight that, when you start to see that 1 square inch at 25 yards, and you need to put all your shots inside that, you realize that if you don't use every tool that you need, and among those, of course, the sling, it's a must because it gives you about at least an extra 15% of extra accuracy. Is that correct?
Oh, I would say, 15 to 25% more accurate and more repeatable.
Exactly. So that was wow. I just say that's great. I love that. And now there are, every time I shoot a rifle, I went beyond Appleseed. I start to find other schools and also other information. But that for me was the foundation. What made me really understand. I don't care if I shoot an AK-47, M14, or let's say any 22. I want to always use the sling in every way I can. There are 3 basic positions for the sling. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah. So in a standing position, we use what's called a hasty sling. The sling is attached to the rifle at the front by the barrel end and also at the bottom at the buttstock end. And we're going to teach you how to size that sling for you and use it to really stabilize your shooting position in a standing position, because standing is the least stable of all shooting positions. What makes a position stable is more contact with the ground. Mm-hmm. When you're standing, you have the least contact with the ground. You have the small area that are your 2 footprints. Those are your contact. And then you're subject to wind and muscle fatigue and a million other things. And we're going to show you how to do the things, how to use steady hold factors to steady your position, how to relax when you shoot so you're not using muscle, and how that sling really helps you.
Exactly. And muscle, you say something very important because, we will go there when we talk about the natural point of aim. Muscles are not our friends. Don't get me wrong. You want to be strong. You want to be able to walk and run and do whatever you have to do. But in the shooting, marksmanship discipline, we want to use bones as much as possible because muscle, they tremble and, they're not going to be repeatable every time. So please continue on that. We go now from the hasty. There is also the hasty and the other one. Go ahead.
Yeah, the second type of sling that we use is called a loop sling, and we use this in both the kneeling or sitting position and also in the prone position. And we disconnect the sling from the butt of the rifle, and we make a loop in it and put it around our bicep so it's nice and high and tight. And we use that to adjust our sling and to steady the rifle in both of those positions. And we're going to teach you in a sitting position all the steady hold factors of sitting position, where to put your elbows, where to put your legs, how to hold your arm. Should it be up in a what we call a chicken wing, or should it be down by your side? We're going to teach you all that, the proper shooting position to help you have the most stable shot. And then we do the same thing in the prone position. The prone is the most stable because you have the most contact with the ground. We're going to teach you how to use that sling, how to position your body so that you have an accurate, repeatable shot. That not only could you put one shot in the 1 inch, but you could put all 5 in the 1 inch.
Exactly. Now, from the sling that, of course, this is not a lesson. By the way, if you're driving, don't start to experiment this stuff. Get your rifle out of your bag or whatever. Just focus. This is just to give you an idea. Things that maybe they are taken for granted, but maybe not everybody knows. That's the idea. Now, from the sling, let's go to another very important foundation that for me was the moment that when I discovered that and I was able to master it, I really saw my progress in achieving my qualification for the Army qualification test. And I'm talking about the natural point of aim. Please elaborate on that.
Your body, when you address a target, your body has a natural point of aim. If you were to think about it as a golfer, when you address the ball, you have to line up your body in such a way that the ball, when you hit it, is going to go where you want it. If you drive a motorcycle, you know the way you move your head is the way the motorcycle goes. It's just a fundamental rule. Well, the same is in place for shooting. The way you line up your body will have an effect on the way where your bullet goes. We call that the natural point of aim. So if your natural point of aim leads the rifle to somewhere that's different from the target, you have two ways to get the rifle on target.
Mm-hmm.
You can use your muscles and move the rifle over the target, but I promise you that will not be a repeatable thing.
Exactly.
Or you can adjust your body to make sure that your natural point of aim is on the target, that you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, open them, and be right on target. And you relax. You don't have to use muscles, and you shouldn't. That natural point of aim, we're going to teach you how to do it in not only a standing position, but a seated or kneeling position and a prone position.
Yes. Now, this is for me was fun, like almost when you found, wow, now I got a magic trick. And I tell you, when you start to go above 190, talking about the scores, and then we will go a little bit about the test, you realize that if you don't have the natural point of aims, you're not going to cross the magic number of 210 or whatever it is, okay? So that was beautiful, just beautiful. For me, well, I don't know. I felt blessed, to not only to come to America, but also to learn these skills that, when I was in Italy, I tell you, rifles, yeah, right. I mean, if you got a shotgun for hunting, after a lot of permits and regulations, you're lucky because after all, slaves, they are allowed to hunt once in a while. But military rifle, no way, very hard to get. And of course, I was blessed in some ways because my family was in the military. At least my uncle was a general, and I have another family member who was a former cop. So I was able to somehow live almost in the surreal world. That was not exactly the Italian world. So I had the opportunity to have weapons around me, and I also attended the military school, but still to do this as a civilian was amazing, and I love it. Now let's go back to the idea of the 6 steps, because I would like to say I don't care if you have an AR-15, an AK, whatever rifle you have, that means he has a stock that's you're going to lean your head on it and push on your shoulder. It's still the same principles. And if you want to be accurate, I'm not talking about spraying and paying, yeah, also you pay the ammo and pray. You must achieve that goal. You must hit every time you squeeze the trigger. And how do we achieve that goal as a rifleman? And what are the 6 steps on how to become a rifleman? Go ahead.
Yep. So we have 6 steps of firing a shot. We've broken it down into 6 steps. And these steps to firing a shot will not only apply to your rifle, but they will apply to your handgun if you shoot a handgun. So the first is what we call sight alignment. You want to make sure that your firearm is pointed at the target. You don't want to point the gun at something that you don't want to shoot. So we want to get that to where you're aiming at the target. And we do that by sight alignment. It's by focusing on the front sight and lining the front sight up with the back sight. We call that sight alignment. And then the next thing you want is sight picture. So everybody, and this is a common mistake when they start shooting, everybody wants to focus at the target downrange. But when you're shooting, what you should actually be focusing on is the front sight. And I've heard people say, oh, Doc, my eyes aren't what they used to be. I can't do that. If you can hold your hand out in front of you and put your thumb up and look at your thumbnail in clear focus, then you can be a great shooter. That's what you need. You need that focus on your front sight. You can't focus on 2 planes at once. When you focus on your front sight, the target is going to be blurry, and that's the way it's supposed to be. We call that getting the right sight picture.
Yes, and and that's just the beginning. The 6 steps. I would like to go through a little bit more now, but I would like before. People may say, "I know this stuff. I know already all this," and I hate when people say, "I know," because you never know enough. I tell you, even when you think you know, there is always something new to know. Let me give you a little challenge to all my listeners. I would like to invite you, please, to get 1 square inch that you can, get a little bit of a marker, whatever, do it with your computer. 1 square inch, okay? And at that point, you put this square inch on paper at 25 yards, okay? And then I will let you put at least 3 rounds out of 5. If you can, all 5 would be great, with any rifle you want. I don't care if you got 22, 308, whatever, okay? And then I will let you send me a snap photo, a snapshot of this target. If you cannot do that, I would like to know still how close you get. And that for me was the moment of the truth. I mean, if you cannot accomplish that goal, you shooting at hot air. So, and then you need to go back to the basics, to the foundations, fundamentals. That's what we're talking about. So please, if you have that, anybody who send me a photo, I will send you a free gift, one of my songs, okay? And I really appreciate that, because I'm not gonna do that because I want to put you down or put you up, because I want to create a moment of truth with all of us to start to say, wow, I probably need to go back to foundations. So send me an email, zanna@zanna.us, or find me on Facebook, or go to lovegunsfreedom.com. And I appreciate, be honest, don't cheat. Send me a photo with your 1 square inch, whatever happens. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. I don't care. I appreciate it. And I'll put my out too. Go ahead.
Yep. So everybody says, like you pointed out, Luca, everybody says, I know this stuff. There is a big difference between knowing and doing. And I can tell you, as a professional instructor, you will be amazed at it's like talking to your teenage son. You tell them, don't do this. I know. And they do it anyway. Even though they know they shouldn't, they do it anyway. This is the same thing with shooting. People know this stuff, but then they do it anyway. So the third step in firing the shot is what we call respiratory pause. Everybody has a normal breath cycle. Breathe in, breathe out. We don't even think about it. But when you're behind a rifle and you're looking down your sights and you have all your steady hold factors, you're going to see that when you breathe in, your rifle barrel goes up, and when you breathe out, your rifle barrel comes down. It's part of the normal respiration, and it affects our point of aim. So what we teach is a respiratory pause. You take your deep breath in, take your deep breath out, and hold it out, and that's when you make your shot. When the rifle is steady and at the bottom of your respiratory cycle. We call that respiratory pause. And then we go to number 4. Step number 4 is what I call the Zen step, because this is all about focusing. The first thing you have to do is you have to focus your eye on the front sight, not on the target, the front sight. And the second part of that step is to focus your mind on keeping the front sight on target. Remember, you're only looking at the front sight, not focusing on the target. And you've got to focus your mind and tell your mind, stay focused on the front sight and get it on target. So it's all about focus, and that's why I call it the Zen step, because it's really a mental step.
Yes, it is true. It starts all there. It is, for me, as I said before, I don't do yoga, I don't do anything. But when I go shooting, people think it's a violent thing. For me, it is the most relaxing and most, almost, it's like almost going to another world. It's really get me my state of mind completely focused and stay away from all the other problems, all the other things of life. It's like really a mental experience for me more than physical. I agree with this Zen moment. Please continue.
Yep. So step number 5 is squeezing the trigger. I see a lot of people on the line, they don't even know how to use their trigger. They're pulling it back and forth like John Wayne or letting their finger fly. It doesn't require that much effort. We call it trigger squeeze. We want you to squeeze slowly and straight back, not off to an angle. Squeeze that trigger straight back so that when the gun goes off, it's almost a surprise to you. And then we do the sixth step, which is called follow through. You'll see a lot of people pull the trigger and then flip their finger forward and get off the trigger. We teach what's called follow through. Hold that trigger back, because even though it happens in a split second, there are a lot of things that have to happen between the time that you squeeze the trigger and the bullet exits the barrel. The hammer falls, ignites the primer explodes and lights the full charge. The full charge builds up pressure until it expels the bullet from the cartridge, and then it has to travel down the length of your barrel. In that little bit of time, you can move and your bullets will come off target. So we teach follow through. You want a deep breath in, deep breath out, squeeze, and hold back, and call your shot. If you pulled the trigger and you knew you were aiming at this spot, then that's where the bullet should go. Because you can lie to yourself, but targets don't lie.
Yes.
If you're not on target, you're going to know it.
Exactly. And there is nothing wrong. Let's say sometimes it's normal to make mistakes, but when you call the mistake, it means at least you know what you're doing. Okay. That's very important. And also an important thing in the sixth step that I really found vital is the trigger reset. Like, for example, if people have a Glock, if you have a Glock, that's very important. With the rifle is even more important, in my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about the trigger reset for a second, please.
Okay. So when you make contact with the trigger and you do your squeeze should come straight back. Now, if you're shooting while you're breathing, you breathe in, you breathe out, you squeeze, you hold back, you breathe in, and then you let your finger off the trigger just enough to reset the trigger. You don't have to flick your finger off or be fast, not jerking the trigger. Just let it up enough to feel the trigger reset, and then you're ready for a second shot. Now, in Appleseed, we don't advocate rapid fire type shooting, but if you had to do rapid fire, that is the way to do it, because you only use the amount of energy required to reset the trigger and be ready to shoot again.
Very good, very good. I was thinking, my mind was every time you say a word, I like to almost do it in my own mind. And now, another important thing, we were talking about several practical things of the 6 steps. Another important thing I really thought was vital, beside, of course, the prone position, that is the most stable position, is also the idea that we must know our own gear, because sometimes we go there, we go with our rifle, and then we start to work with time limits. We don't have all day. We don't have all day to squeeze the trigger, but also we don't have all day to think if there is a problem. Let's say your magazine may not work. You want to have all your let's say rifleman nest. What is the rifleman nest? Let's go straight to the point.
Yeah. So we want you to be comfortable with your firearm, to know it, to know how to operate it safely, but know how to operate it proficiently. So we have 4 stages to an AQT. In the first stage, you're going to shoot that standing up, and you're going to do it with 1 magazine. In stage number 2, we're going to ask you to do a magazine change. And it's really where you get to be good at changing your magazine and dealing with any little problems that come up. If you have a failure to eject or a failure to feed or need to make your rifle safe, you're really going to become proficient. And we want you to make what we call a rifleman's nest. When you're in a seated position, you should know how you're aligned to the target, have your natural point of aim, do your steady hole factors, but also when you need those magazines, you need them where you can reach them. You want to build a nest where everything is within sight and within reach so that you can do it efficiently within a limited amount of time.
Exactly.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is so important because, this is what differences from start shooting at the range for target shooting and we start to learn how to become a rifleman. Because, God forbid, we really have to take the weapon to defend your family, to defend your life, or to defend this country. We need to understand that it's much more than just shooting at something. Normally, it doesn't move when you shoot a paper. This is just the first stage, of course. Now, talking about the cadence, because we know that now people like to shoot fast, at least the type of weapons out there. They're normally in the movies, especially depicted, the 3 rounds burst, stuff like that. But the rifleman means that the man or woman who can achieve the 4 minutes of angles that can hit targets of 20 square inches at 500 yards with iron sight. Exactly. What is the cadence that the rifleman should aim to?
So a rifleman's cadence is if you follow your normal breathing cycle. You take a deep breath in, you breathe out, you should squeeze the trigger. You breathe in, breathe out, squeeze the trigger. With each breath, and the average human breathes between 12 and 20 times per minute. So if you shoot in a rifleman's cadence, you can get off 12 to 20 shots in a minute just shooting in rifleman's cadence. Shooting with your natural breathing cycle.
Perfect. Listen, I want to thank you first of all for your time. I know you're a busy man, you work, and this is your time that normally you would dedicate with your family and resting. Before we finish, I want you please give the website for Appleseed, how people can reach you out or can reach Appleseed and join one of the clinics around the States.
So, Luca, I appreciate being here, and I'd like to invite all of your listeners to come out to an Appleseed. I'll give your listeners a challenge. If they want to come out to an Appleseed, if they come and they shoot well and they score 210 on the AQT on their first Appleseed, I'll give them their money back.
Wow. Speaking about money, it's not even much. I was amazed that the fee, they were so reasonable. How much is, for example, for a regular person to come there for the 2-day clinics?
So normally, for a 2-day clinic, for an adult would be $60. Mm-hmm. For a child would be $20. But right now, we have a special promotion with Groupon.com. Mm-hmm. If you go to Groupon and type in Project Appleseed, we'll give you a third off. That means an adult can come for $40 for the whole weekend, and a child could come for $14 for the whole weekend. Wow. That's less than minimum wage.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I want to, every time you come in town, I try to support and come there. Even, I already did my qualification. I just enjoy shooting. And I used to be an instructor in training. Unfortunately, time and life is really limited, but I try to do everything I can at least to promote you guys. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yep, and anybody who wants to reach us could do that at www, appleseedinfo.org.
Perfect.
www.appleseedinfo.org.
Very good. Dr. Rich, I appreciate you, and maybe one day I hope to meet you. Maybe we can have a coffee together, okay? Listen, thank you.
Luca, when I come to Arizona, we're going to get together, and I'm going to get you back to teaching.
Very good. I would love that. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, don't go away. I got more information coming and a little song briefly, and we will talk in a little bit. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zan.
Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Our fathers gave us freedom and the right to defend it. Politicians, United Nations, you won't change the Constitution of our nation. We are free people, and for freedom we'll fight. We'll never give up our right. The Second Amendment, the Second Amendment, the right to be free, the right to defend yourself. The Second Amendment, the Second Amendment, the right to be free, the right to defend yourself. Needs free people with the freedom to defend our rights. To be defenseless doesn't help the sheep. Why should it help a human from thugs and creeps? And people disarmed, only free to cry. Yourself. The Second Amendment, the Second Amendment, the right to be free, the right to defend yourself.
He's a songwriter, a poet, a rifleman.
I'm not afraid.
And a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid.
Italian by birth.
I'm not afraid.
American by choice. Gianluca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com. Lyrics for your mind, music for your heart. Gianluca Zanna's new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom.